Okay, cool. We're live?
And we are live.
Okay, cool. Nice. Okay, I'm just gonna start because I think there are people here. So yeah, welcome to UX Design Process Fundamentals with MyPalate. First, I'm just gonna do a quick intro. Calvin, do you want to go first?
Sure. Excuse my internet because I'm dropping in and out. So my name's Calvin. I have doing design on and off for the past almost 10 years. So recently I started focusing on UX, and I'm working as a UX designer with MyPalate right now.
Yep. And yeah, I'm Christina. Okay, wait, sorry. Was there more? Okay.
No,
so yeah, my name is
Christina.
Oh, okay, thanks. Yeah, as you can see, my name is Christina. I also do design at MyPalate. I am pretty new to UX design, maybe about over a year. I am joining RBC next semester as a design technologist intern, where I'll be working on design systems in UI. And today, yeah, we're gonna go over a bit of the basics of the design process, and also how you might be able to apply that to your projects. So, today's agenda. First, we're going to talk about what is UX design, as well as the design thinking process, and also then I will quickly go over a little piece of how my process was as I designed part of search at MyPalate for our mobile app. So also, yeah, if you have questions, just feel free to leave it in the stage chat. I can't see it, but I know Calvin can, and possibly Yash. So yeah, just feel free to let me know. Okay, so first, what is UX design? There's like a lot of different definitions of UX design, but personally, I like to see it as the process of understanding people to solve their problems and add delight during any interaction they have with the product, service, or brand. So what does this mean? It's a process, and it's not really just about the end result, and it's about understanding people, like who you're designing for. It's not just, I don't know, designing something to look nice, but it's to, it's a process that you can solve people's problems, and not only just solve people's problems, but add delight. And it's during any interaction that people have with a product, service, or brand. So it's not just about digital experiences, but it can also be physical ones and other types of in-person touch points. Okay. Yeah, Calvin, feel free to jump in anytime. I know your internet is not that good, but yeah. Okay. So yeah, now we're going to talk about the design. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
I think there's a delay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was going to add with the UX. It's it's a very big umbrella term. It incorporates a lot of fields that is getting more specialized as the industry mature. So you can talk about writing the copy contents. You can talk about the user research. You can talk about the interaction. You can talk about how to deal with the stakeholders. So there's a chart somewhere on that UX nowadays is so broad that sometimes in a few years you need to specialize, or even you can just specialize right out of the gate. Like I think Jeff mentioned earlier how user interface, UI, and UX goes hand in hand. So nowadays people also specialize in UI only or UX only. So yeah, it's, the possibilities endless almost.
Yeah, that's so true. There's even people who just do information architecture, or UX engineers, or there's super specialized. Actually, I know someone who's just, their job title is accessibility engineer. So they only work on UI and accessibility, and they focus on that. So that's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think the fundamental we talk about today is applicable to pretty much all the specialized field.
Yeah. Okay. So Yeah, so I guess now we can talk a bit about the design thinking process. So there's a lot of different models out there, but I think today we're just going to go through one. So the reason why we go through this kind of process is so that we can kind of research and solve and make sure that our solutions are actually benefiting users and solving their problems. They're usually like non-linear, meaning like a lot of times you'll see diagrams with like many different steps, but they don't really appear in any particular order like in practice. Oftentimes people go back and forth, and kind of the reason for this is a lot of times you'll hear it depends. Like it depends on many different factors, which I guess you'll also see later on as we kind of go through examples. But yeah.
Definitely not linear.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, the one that we'll be going through today is the 5-step process. And we will kind of be going a bit into each individual step, and then we'll go through some examples of what UX designers usually do at each one. So I'll just say them right now: empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test.
Yeah.
Anything? Hopefully they will soon. Okay. So yeah, not really the first step, but is empathize. And this one is about understanding people. So a lot of the times, this is more about the research stage. So sometimes you will do interviews, or you can look at trends and data to get a sense of people's behaviors. You can also conduct surveys and field studies. So field studies are like if you go into someone's natural sort of environment and observe them. There's also like diary studies, and there's many different forms, but these are just a few.
Yeah. What kind of challenge have you encountered in this so far?
Oh, that's a good question. I feel like a lot of times, like in practice, it's really hard to get buy-in to have that extra time to really like times like especially in like smaller maybe more startup environments, like you kind of want to build things really quickly, so sometimes you don't really go in depth into research as much as you would want to. What about you?
Yeah, I found the same thing. Like there was a lot of good questions yesterday from this Designathon that I think a lot of times we have to make assumptions just because of the lack of resource. So I think the important part is we have to make sure we know those are assumptions, and we have to think about those assumptions and at the earliest opportunity to test those assumptions with all these different survey methods, research methods. Right?
Yeah, for sure. Like,
yeah, it is difficult sometimes to get. Yeah, and also you want to make sure when you select the people to interview, you don't introduce bias. For example, you only select people from a certain age group because they're your friends, right? Similar backgrounds. So those are a bit more difficult to overcome sometimes to get a good representation of people.
Yeah, true. Mm-hmm. Okay. Honestly, I don't know if I'm like going too fast or like too slow, so just let me know. But
we have an hour. Well, we have 40 minutes right now.
Okay. So yeah, define is about framing the problem. So usually that once you've done a bit of research, you can sort of start to synthesize kind of the insights and kind of group together common themes and really define like what your users want and kind of and need and what the general problem is. So a lot of times people can make sometimes personas to kind of capture some key information about their target user groups, or journey maps to kind of map out the journey of their user as they might interact, like highlighting touch points of where they might interact with the problem to kind of get a better view of get a better view of how their app is being used and what sort of context it's being used. Another really common and popular useful tool is like problem statements to kind of frame someone's point of thinking for their entire project.
Yeah, I found this, it could go over this problem and research several times if you want. If you found out the problem you are coming up with, actually it's not the intention you have at the beginning. Sometimes, you realize, oh, maybe the problem is not about, I can't really think of an example right now.
Yeah, like
sometimes maybe the problem.
Yeah, like sometimes you go into like research and you think the problem is one thing, but then after you do your research, you realize the problem's like another thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna move on to the next one, unless there's anything else. Actually, no, I do have a question. I have a question for you, Calvin. How useful do you find how might we problem statements? Do you use them a lot, or do you find that they're useful in approaching your design?
And you're a bit breaking up, but I think your question is how's how might we useful in a sense?
Yeah,
right?
and like do you find them personally useful? Because I feel like when I first learned about them, like people are always telling me like, yeah, you use how might we problem statement for everything. But then like when I actually started working on projects, I like sort of did not really make them as much.
Yeah, I guess it depends on which stage of the product cycle you're in. Sometimes how might we usually is very broad. Like if you're just approaching the problem together the first time or the second time, like usually as the product become more mature, you kind of already know more details and what specific problem you want to tackle. At that point, how might we become less useful? I found like how might we is good to
true.
ask like a very broad, like how might we make grocery shopping easier for people that don't have time? Like it's very broad, right? But if you already work on you already have prototypes, you already have products out. Sometimes how might we become too ambiguous in a sense, right? Then in this case, you'll probably use more focus framing, like problem statements, or yeah, like I think it's how might it's more useful in the beginning of the product journey.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so the next one we want to talk about is Ideate. So once you kind of define the problem that you want to tackle, now is the time to explore different possibilities. A lot of times during this phase, we like to kind of adopt the mindset that there's really no wrong idea. There's no nothing is too out of the box. I don't know if that makes sense, but welcome like any sort of ideas, even if they're not really feasible, because those kind of ideas can lead to and like in collaborating with teams, they can lead to things that you might not have thought of if you just kind of kept those ideas to yourself. So a lot of the times, sometimes people will use user stories to sort of break down statements of what exactly their users are looking to do, and task flow diagrams, kind of different kinds of exploring different flows a user could navigate through their app, or how their problem could be solved, as well as sketching, and kind of also getting inspiration from other apps. Calvin, what are some of your favorite ways to ideate?
Well, personally, I'm more a very how do you call it, mind map kind of person. I like to draw those task flow diagrams. because they help me sequentially think about things with almost like logical reasoning. But I know a lot of people do more sketching in the beginning, right? Oh, you can also sketch a task flow diagram. Yeah, I think that I'm more focused on those.
Yeah.
I guess this also. How about you, Christina?
Yeah, I think I really like getting inspiration from other apps. I love to not copy, but take inspiration from many different apps that are, leading in the industry and have, I think, like really great solutions to similar problems.
Oh yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, yeah. A lot of time I found like I'd be sitting here thinking about a solution, and like people already done it, right?
Yeah,
Even it
exactly.
doesn't have to be the same industry. Sometimes a one form of interaction. Yeah, and one form of interaction can be in other industry that I didn't think about, right?
Yeah.
Like the onboarding process is kind of generic, so it doesn't have to be one industry, for example.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so this one is prototype. So when it comes to prototyping, it's actually building. So once you kind of look at ideas, and usually like what sort of variations that you want to try and test out. So a lot of times people will make sometimes like it doesn't have to be like a fully functional like code prototype. Sometimes you can even just prototype and go on to testing with simple wireframes. A lot of I think for this hackathon or designathon, you'll be making interactive prototypes. So like Figma, XD, be like motion design. I don't know if you guys are doing motion design, but like Protopie, Flinto, those kind of things. But there's also code. Yeah, code prototypes are a thing too, which is basically just, there's a lot of like, I find that there's a lot of popping up like no code solutions where sometimes you can just take designs and export them into code without coding, but they're still a little buggy. Okay. This bicycle thing at the bottom. I included this image because I think it's really important to remember that like kind of when you're prototyping, it should be kind of your defining your minimum viable prototype requirements. So for example, if the goal is to help people travel from one place to another, and let's say like a few years down the line, you would be making a car, you wouldn't build a prototype of a wheel or like, I don't know, like a window of a car, because your main goal is to see if is to help people like kind of get from one place to another. So possibly like one of your earlier prototypes might be something like a skateboard or a scooter.
Yeah, I wanted mention that I don't know if you know him, Christina, because we went to the same school. I can't remember his name. Shoot. Yeah, there was an instructor at Burn Station. He mentioned that he likes to think of MVP as minimum valuable, most valuable product. What he meant is he's trying to reframe it away so we think of the user first instead of stakeholder, because he found a lot of time when we talk about minimum viable, we're thinking in terms of the stakeholder, like how much budget we have, what's the product we can push out right now that will get clicks, right? Not necessarily the feature that the user most wanted, but it's the feature that we can push out.
Yeah,
I mean, it's still
so
similar. You're still focusing on skeleton features, but in this case, you're trying to think about the skeleton feature that a user wants, not what the stakeholder who pay you wants to push out, right? Like, for example, you want to do ads first. for an app because ads make money, but the user does not want to see ads. Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. It's like always I find hard to sort of find a balance between I don't know, like business goals and user needs. Like sometimes they do align, but not always. So yeah, that's so true.
Yeah. I do find like as a designer, sometimes you have to be advocates for users.
Yeah. Agree. Okay. So on testing, so once people make their prototype, I mean, you can do this like during other. I think it's good to also do testing during other phases as well. So you don't have to just kind of wait until the quote end or like once you have a nice looking prototype to kind of validate your solution. But it's always great to kind of test your ideas and your prototypes along the way. But the reason why you do this is kind of to make sure, you know, like, does this really solve the problem? Does this really help people? And, you know, how can we improve it? So a lot of the times, there's a lot of different forms of testing depending on your product and your resources. Some examples are like usability testing. So finding out, you know, like, can the user actually complete the task that they, or what they want to do with your product, or how usable is it? A/B testing. So kind of testing two different variations to see like which one performs better. Preference testing. You know, I think preference testing is just pretty much, I think it's used more in visual design actually, but it's more about which ones that people prefer and like directly asking them. And then clickstream analysis is another form of like, you know, like getting data from people's behavior. What forms of testing are you more familiar with, Calvin?
Oh, I haven't really got a chance to do a lot of like hardcore user testing because a lot of them actually require quite a bit of setup, right? You need a facilitator, you actually need sometimes machine to track your eyeballs to see where you're looking at. So sometimes like the company maybe don't have the budget or setup for it. So I'm probably just do the usability test, A/B test. These are the most the ones I'm more familiar with. I want to go back to what you said about like testing early. I mean, there's different type of testing. There's the one on the slide now. It's more like you have a high fidelity prototype and you are testing like alpha testing just before you push to the market, or when the product is already in the market and you want to improve it. I mean, there's other time when you test internally. You can test like with just your peer, like when you do wireframes and you want to see if this particular transition between the pages makes sense. You can just extend it to your designer buddy and say, hey, look at this low fidelity in wireframe, see if that makes sense, right? A lot of time it can be done in like 10 minutes, right? I mean, I remember we had a app that we used called Marvel. I don't know if you still use that.
Basically, you like draw it, right?
Image, yeah, you draw it, take pictures, and then you can just put simple buttons on the screenshot, basically in the photo, and you can just say, oh, press this button and go to this screen. And just send it to your design buddy like this makes sense, is intuitive, right? Those are early testing that they can be done very easily. So when in the end, when you make the high fidelity, you already iron out most of the kinks. Yeah, so actually those are the
that's so true.
I like the best because they're easy to do.
Yeah, same. Like, I feel like we always like, it's so expensive to do like sort of like fancy testing, and like, we're always, you know, trying to save on resources and time.
Yeah, and also I think this also become another industry by itself, people who just do testings, right? And I think you also get into...
people get paid.
Yeah, you don't even do the previous design, just test design. Yeah, and then I think this sometimes overlap with SEO jobs, right? You know, search engine optimizations, right? Like, how do you design a web page so more people click on this thing? So, like, I believe Google has some tools for like clickstream analysis. I can't remember, but yeah, this area I haven't really explored yet.
Yeah, like Google Analytics. Yeah, same here. I'm definitely not an expert.
Yeah, those kind of stuff.
Yeah. Oh,
No.
okay. Okay, if there isn't anything else to add, well, let me know. But I'm going to talk about designing search, like a small part of search, of course, because search is a very big thing, as you may know, at MyPalate, and sort of how I applied some design thinking principles in some aspects of the process for the MyPalate app. Okay, so yeah, feel free to let me know if you have any questions. I mean, I can't see them, but Calvin, let me know, or I don't know. But yeah, I'm just gonna start. So okay, so yeah, okay, a little bit of background information. So I did most of what I do at MyPalate for the past few months has been developing and improving the search feature, designing and improving the search feature on the MyPalate mobile app. So first, I use existing research. A lot of the times, if you're working in a large team, you don't have to do everything yourself. So I was really fortunate that we had previous user interviews and previous research done, I think mostly by Calvin and LJ, our lead designer. So this was a persona that Calvin created. And this was really useful for me at the beginning, well, throughout all of my process, but especially at the beginning when I need to know sort of like who is the main target user group that I have in mind as we design this feature. Because at first, you can't really like design for everyone. It's just too much work. And like focusing on your target users at the beginning is really helpful. So from this, the main things that I took away from this was that one, search should be like able to help people find recipes that really meet their health conditions and meet their dietary restrictions. And also people are busy. So they really want to get to things as fast as possible. They want to eat now. And they want to find recipes that of these types of things that they're looking for. Okay, so before going into actually designing, I took MyPalate app. The MyPalate app before this in a 1-month sprint. So a lot of the features weren't fully fleshed out. It was kind of just sort of like a 1-month hackathon, but not really, of the MyPalate app. So two of the key issues that we discovered were that there's a search page and a discover page, and they felt too similar. Like they both had a recipe on it, and we wanted to find a way to differentiate that. Another one of the key issues about search was that there were no suggestions. So, it takes longer for people to find what they're looking for, and it's not, like, as you can see, there's no. Before going in designing, I first took a look at kind of other industry solutions. I did find it really useful to look at existing recipe apps, but also other apps such as like Spotify, Netflix, who just have like great apps and great search features in general that are kind of scoped to a certain type of, not really data set, but like, how like on Google, you're kind of searching for everything, but on Spotify, you're only searching for like music related things. So something like that. And then about suggestions. So I mainly looked at recipe apps to see how they did suggestions. Okay, so before going into designing the wireframes, it was really useful to map out all of search and kind of define the scope of like what are the different aspects of search and how does a user kind of travel through it to find what they're looking for. So, okay, there's a lot of different parts of search here, but we're mainly talking about these two, which are the main search screen and the suggestions and typing. And this is really useful to kind of see like where do they start and where do they quote end, ending is when they get to a recipe or they find a recipe that they're satisfied with.
What's the tool you use here? Like, what are some of the symbols mean?
Oh, okay, good question. So I used whimsical.com. It's a tool for, you can do like floating on it, but you can also do like wireframing and some other stuff. It's kind of nice to like use a tool that's separate from Figma, that's a bit more simple, so that you don't really have to worry about any sort of details, and you can kind of just play around with like what happens if this happens in the flow or something else. So the main keys that I used were
Go ahead.
Okay, the main keys that I used were like the rounded ones for like starting and end points, diamonds for decision points. For example, like if there's a conditional screen based on a question, like, if you're looking for a recipe, do matches exist, yes or no? And then kind of like tasks or processes that the user will do in rectangles. What was your question?
Oh, no, I was just asking like what the legends are, like you explained it.
Oh, okay,
Like how to organize your thoughts. Yeah. I think this is just some people add more symbols. I believe like they were like 5 or 6 symbols. I see in one chart. It's just basically whatever you think, I guess, to help you think.
Yeah, for sure. Just like help you organize the different types of actions that might be possible, the actions and like locations. Yeah. Okay, so after that, I actually didn't really, I don't know, I don't like sketching that much. Sometimes I do, but I prefer to, yeah, I mean, everyone is different, but so I, based on kind of the inspiration that I got from other apps and also the task flow diagrams, I made some sort of low fidelity wireframes based on kind of what I thought would improve the search experience. And so with this, I actually tested with, so basically what we were talking about earlier with not having a lot of resources to test it. So my main ways of getting feedback on these designs were, one, through internal design reviews. So just talking to other designers about different aspects of the design, and also user testing. So I was like usability testing, and this is all done remotely, like through Google Meet. So I tested it with some other members of the MyPalate team that weren't on the design team. So like the marketing team and I think research as well. In an ideal situation, it would have been great to test with people that were more in our target audience, so people sort of like Kara. But in the real world, I guess, there was a lot of constraints about, time and being able to really find people that match our demographic. So I was still able to get a lot of useful feedback from remote usability testing with members of other departments of the MyPalate team. Okay, so
yeah, I was just going to say that we just have to remember that they're probably going to introduce some bias when we do internal testing that we just have to be aware of, down the line.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like when like consolidating results, it definitely like make sure to keep things transparent, like who you tested with and kind of how many people and where the kind of potential trade-offs. Yeah.
Like when I was doing another card sorting, like when you do internal people and external naive users, like you could get slightly different results. And then you see like, oh, okay, we have been thinking about this project for so long, we forgot certain like aspect that a naive user would not see, right? So
yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just that's a I think a challenge that you just have to, as your product is more robust and you get more time and resource to do better testing, that you will overcome. But unfortunately, you just sometimes you just have to take those leap of faith.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Like when sometimes like if when on the rare occasion that we do get to test with people who have like never seen our product before, it's always like you find out so many things that like you never thought about, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So like from these testing sessions, there were many takeaways, but I will mainly focus on two that led the rest of the my next decisions. So one was more information. So one thing that I sort of overlooked when I was designing these were that they're testing a pretty early. Our app was still in pretty early phases or early stages. So like most recipe apps that you'll see have, like filtering by time and different features like time, calories, skill level, and things like that. And our app only had, I believe, cuisines, allergies, and dietary restrictions. And one overwhelming piece of feedback from everyone was that like, oh, like I really want to know, like, does this recipe have the ingredients that I have? How much time does it take to make it? How many calories is it, and other stuff like that. So um, I, I really went into testing thinking like, oh, I'm just going to improve the usability of search. But what I realized is that, like content is really like one of the most important things. So I kind of took a step back and looked at, kind of gathered some data from people about what are the most useful categories when looking for a recipe. And then there are a lot, so I kind of use this information for future decisions on how to prioritize, because we can't introduce all these features at once, but kind of use this information on how to prioritize like which kind of categories to add to the app next and which ones are most valuable to our users, and then we can like slowly start introducing them in that order.
Would you say that you did a slight pivot and you do another round of like wireframe and testing?
Yeah, for sure. Like these wireframes, I barely like for my sort of final, not really that much for the fidelity designing. So definitely a lot of things changed that I wasn't expecting to change, but it was really useful. Yeah. Yeah. So another key thing that I got from user testing was about the suggestions. So this was the original suggestions page that I was testing with users, and it just says, I just threw in some random suggestions there. I'm like, noodles, chicken, pad thai, cake. I wasn't really, in hindsight, didn't really put that much thought into it. After testing, I realized, like we should look into which suggestions will lead to more useful results. So as an early app, we might not have as many recipes in our database compared to other apps. So what kind of suggestions will lead to more search results, or what kind of suggestions will be able to help people like find what they're looking for more quickly? And also, how should we prioritize suggestions? So there's, like I mentioned before, there's different categories, right? There's like cuisine, skill level, time. Like, are we like, here I'm only suggesting types of food, but we can also suggest types of cuisines, types of I don't know, like times and calories and other types of categories like that. And what's the order of those? Like, which ones should come first? Also, like if someone is a new user or a returning user, how does this screen differ? Like, are we going to show them some of their recent searches, or if they've never used this app before, what kind of things do we want to show them? Also, empty state versus typing. So if they haven't typed anything, what comes up? And also, once they start typing, how are we going to help them find something that, dynamically helps them as they're typing? Okay, so from there, I did more research. Yeah, the research in the beginning wasn't enough. I had to look more in depth at these different apps. I did look at a lot of the similar apps, but just a lot more in depth about the order of which they showed things, and like basically the stuff that I was talking about here.
Yeah, I want to mention this is a good example how it's not linear, because you just did iterative, like you just went back to the research part now with more information. So you're doing the loop.
Yeah, exactly.
Hopefully the spiral goes up, right? Spirals up eventually to destination.
Yeah. No, it never ends. They just keep spiraling. Yeah. So, yeah, based on that research, I did finally move into high fidelity wireframes. So this is kind of what the current iteration looks like right now. And as we moved into more higher fidelity or like color type of wireframes, they did change a lot based on the designs did change a lot based on one, iOS guidelines, and also with scope and future considerations. So what I mean by that is, so this page did change. It is more differentiated from the Discover page, and also kind of showing people different categories and making it the browsing experience a little more different and more organized. But also when designing, thinking about the future, like when we add more categories, such as maybe like ingredients or skill level or time, do we want to also incorporate these things into the like landing search page? Also like personalization. So in the future, or I don't know, I probably like a lot of people use like Spotify, right? If you notice Spotify on the search page, it shows you like your top genres. So like in the future, like do we want to show people kind of their top categories and make it easier for people to kind of find recipes in areas that they visit the most? But for the current scope of this project, this was kind of the screen that I'm at right now. And then about the search suggestions, this is what it looks like now. So pretty much, yeah, one important thing is helping people find what they're looking for faster. So showing recently viewed recipes and recently searched queries. And also another thing was keeping business goals in mind. So we want people to find what they're looking for on our app, but we also want people to keep using our app and feel hungry when they're using our app. So something that we incorporated was using pictures too. I mean, one, it also shows a better preview of the recipe, so they can kind of get a better idea of what it is that they're getting into, but also making people feel hungry using imagery. So I think that is it for the area of the process that I'm in right now. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, how would you, in the ideal world, like, would you test out your, like, different versions of the search?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think I would love to do some further testing soon. I don't know, maybe next month. But I also know that like some of the like they're in development. Like there's new features of search being in development for our launch in January. So it could be cool to kind of just wait until our beta launch. I don't even know if that's what it's called. Our beta launch of the app comes out, and then get feedback from users on like actual app. But we'll see where things go. I'm not 100% sure what my plans will be for testing next, but definitely if there's no formal testing, still getting feedback, of course.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. So yeah, like I mentioned, it never ends. This is not the end. There will be lots more of all of these things. And now, yeah.
Yeah, I think as a Designathon perspective, you'll probably have time to do probably, I'll say 2 loops, like of iterative process. Like, and then you have to decide on, okay, this is it. We're going to publish imperfect product because we know it's only 2 days. It's impossible to get something polished, right? And like Christina said, since it's never end, you have to kind of mentally end it somewhere. And just in the end of your presentation, just said what your next step is that you notice when you get to high fidelity prototype, there's certain shortcomings. and something you would like to work on, but you don't have time, which is completely fair to mention, right? And then we know that you noticed it, that you are aware of it, but you would still manage to complete a product that's, somewhat viable, right,
Yeah.
given the amount of time. So
Yeah,
it's
and like
always okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I was just gonna add that so when you submit your stuff to the judges, it's also sort of like testing because you will give you like feedback on it probably. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think even if it's a full of mistake, self-awareness is very important. Like at least you know where the mistakes are, right? Then we know that if you have time, you'll be able to correct it.
Yeah, like we don't expect you to kind of think of everything, and I never think of it. I don't think it's possible to think of everything. Yeah.
I think it's also important to just remember, go back to the user. Like I remember there was a good suggestion from for my course with BrainStation is you always reference the persona when you are talking about your product. Like, so then in this case, we know that, you are very focused on your solution and that you're thinking about the user all the time, basically. You're not thinking about yourself.
Yeah, that's a really great tip for like presentations as well. Like when you're presenting, I don't know if you guys are presenting for this hackathon, but like it is really useful for the audience to kind of think in that. Yeah.
Yeah, reference the name of your persona. It's like Christina is doing this. Christina will want this. We make this for Christina, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Is that cool?
Yeah. We have about 4 more minutes. Oh, someone just mentioned there's a presentation part.
Oh, we're so on time.
Yeah, we have 4 minutes.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah.
We can talk about like how you found UX so far.
Good question. I don't know. I really like UX because I'm still a student in university, right? And so I think it's really normal to not really know exactly what I want to do yet. But in UX, there's so many different sorts of avenues to explore. Like visual design or something more on the coding side, like I don't know, design system stuff sometimes, like libraries, and also like prototyping. But then there's also like research and product stuff too. So I like that there's a lot to explore.
Yeah, I think more and more people are looking for product designer, which I'm personally exploring. It's almost like a parallel to UX, but you talk more about business side of it, the stakeholder side of it, than pure UX, which is very user focused. Yeah. And,
yeah. How do you find like UX compared to the other types of designs that you did in the past?
Well, UX first and foremost is about digital platform. Like I found, like when I learned user experience, we didn't really think about phone or website. We think about retail space, and we think about like environmental space, right? In addition to just web, like a graphical 2D. So yeah, so UX is very focused on web and mobile. Did I answer the question? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. If anyone watching has any questions,
someone just
always ask us in Slack.
Yeah, so it's like, how many screens are we expecting? I think usually 5 to 10 screens for weekend long Designathon. Like depends on how detailed you put, how much effort you put into each screens. Like some of my colleagues are very good in UI, so they will spend a detailed amount of time on making the screen very pretty. Some people are more about how the page relate to each other. Maybe your task flow is pretty long, right? Then you need to show 10 screens, but each screen only have 1 or 2 changes, right? So it really depends on the amount of details. As long as you portray the features that you want to convince us with. It's really about convincing us. Like, how can you tell a story through the screens you made to convince us? I mean, obviously, one screen will be very difficult, but typically 5 to 10. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
like,
you can make 20 if you want, if you're some sort of wizard.
I don't really think that it's really about like the number of screens that you make, but more like like you were saying about like the features and does this actually, like, I think I would prefer to see like 5 really good well thought out screens of like actually like completing a sort of task than maybe 10 screens that not as much effort were put into. But it also it is really nice to are you guys making it interactive? Yeah, like that is preferred.
Yeah, there's some transitional screens that you can skip. So they're more like filler screen. Like, for example, when you tap into a text box, if you want to make it nice, technically you should see where the keyboard got slide up in the screen. So that's one additional screen, but usually just to show, okay, there's a keyboard function. But sometimes you can just mention that, okay, you input text here, and you just skip that traditional keyboard screen, right? Or sometimes when you have a login screen, you would just have multiple text field, and you just have one tab, and all the text field are filled. You just imply that there's multiple screens in between that you're filling each text box, right? So depends on how you present your screens as well.
Proof of concept, we don't need to see like every single state. So yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, we don't need it. Yeah.
Okay, it's 12:31. Do I leave? Is there things that you say at the end? Like,
okay, I think we're good.
Okay, thanks. Just message us on Slack or yeah.